when I left here for this meeting, my gracious wife said, because she knew I was a little bit nervous, and she said to me, just pretend everyone's naked. And I said, obviously you haven't been to our meetings. I was born in 1955 at Peace River, Alberta, which is up in the Peace River country, which is huge and goes into BC as well. I was born to I was a second child of a family of 7, eventually, to a farming couple, and we had a farm near Grimshaw, Alberta at the time, and we also had a homestead, and a few months ago there was a talk about here, and somebody mentioned a homestead, and about half the people didn't know what a homestead was. So I'm going to try to explain what a homestead was. So my father was born into a family of 12 kids, and somehow my grandfather settled in the Peace River country in 1924 and got his homestead started. And a homestead is when the government actually gives you money, but you just have to prove up on it, which means you have to clear it and cultivate it. And then you have to pay the subsequent taxes on that land from then on until you die. So my grandfather in 1925 went back to Nova Scotia and got his bride, found a bride from Antigonish, Nova Scotia, and brought her back. And they subsequently had the 12 kids. But
that's not his bride.
A nice, and during that other discussion that I was talking about, where people were wondering what a homestead was, the conversation came around to moose, and that was our pet moose, Penny. She came in with we had 300 head of cattle, and she came in with the cattle one day when we were bringing them in, and we raised her, and that's my father. There's the guy in the middle holding onto that wheel. That is my grandfather, Everett Blakely, and his sons around him. My father is the second from the left. And so part of the homesteading parts that to this day I don't know where grandfather got the money to do this, but he ended up with a huge tract of land on either side, or both sides of the Peace River. So in order to prove up the land on the south side of the Peace River, he built this ferry. And that was there. That's sort of the second ferry that he built. So the Blakeleys ferried their farm equipment and everything over to, and they built up huge farms over there. We had 3,200 acres, and my uncles had almost an equivalent amount. My grandfather certainly did have that amount. And we proved up the farm by clearing the land. It was all boreal forest, and became farmers and ranchers. That picture is actually my granddad, who I'm named after, on my mother's side. When he turned 85, he was Man of the Year in the town of Grimshaw. So his life was for service. He served the town of Grimshaw up until the time he died. He used to take people to the hospital. He was at the lunches, and he did whatever was required in the town of Grimshaw. And he was greatly admired. But Alberta's history, this is where the ferry is now. It's called Blakely's Landing. We're going to see a picture of a cairn later on. But that's the existing ferry at it's called Shaftesbury Crossing. And Blakely's Landing is there, and the previous picture was put up by the provincial government. And of course, they tell the history of the landing and tell all about the Blakely family on there. But true to form of government signs, they completely butchered the spelling of our last name. It's nowhere near correct. Yeah, and nobody's ever done anything about it. But we see it and we just laugh, and then we're going, oh man, it's so traditional government. But, so I grew up with like I think 6 siblings, and to this day, I can honestly say that none of us are in jail. We're all alive.
Wow.
And
Does that mean
we're
you just
actually
jumped in
doing
the
well.
car?
So this is the family I grew up into. It's a huge family. You can imagine with 11 kids, and they expanded from there. And we're all over the world now. My brother at one time, he's now retired and stuff like that. He was the energy advisor for the country of Malaysia, and he worked his way through, being a roughneck and a driller and a tool push and up through the oil and gas industry. But anyway, that's enough about my family. Myself, I graduated high school, sort of. I say that because when I turned 10, into grade 11 actually, my father got really, really ill. So I took over the farm while I was attending high school. And I used to go to school 1 or 2 days a week. And my siblings would bring home homework, and I'd do it and send it back. And the funny thing is those 2 years, grade 11 and grade 12, were my best years in high school. I'll just flip back one more time. That's Granny, my grandmother. She was the most staid English woman you ever met, and I think that's about the closest she ever got to Penny.
Penny's getting pretty big.
Penny did get big, and she loved bread. That's what Dad is feeding her, a loaf of bread there. But anyway, back to me. I left home when I was 18 years old, and I didn't really return very much. I went down to Calgary, got a job in construction and stuff. Well, I was a milkman for 3 days. And then I got into construction, and I really kind of never looked back. But I had a girlfriend when I was in high school, and she moved down to Lethbridge to take nursing. And so I followed her down to Lethbridge and continued into construction there. And we eventually did get married. And sadly, it only lasted 12 years before she was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, and decided that she needed to find the world other than me. So that's where it ended there. So, that's all I got. It looked like a postcard, right? Mm-hmm. That's one of my newest adventures, where a group of us went down the Yukon River this summer. And that was one picture we took one night as the sun was going down and along the Yukon River. But one day I started working at a glass shop in Lethbridge, and one day worked myself up. In 2 years I became a laborer, and then 2 years I was the foreman of the glass shop. But one day I was traveling along the street in Lethbridge, and I said to myself, I'm done. I was 25 years old, and I was done. using my brawn, and I started using I wanted to use my brain, so I went back to school when I was 25 years old.